So could you tell me a little bit about what you know about the Cold War and how it affected the world?
The Cold War began before World War II was actually over. The United States realized that Russia, the enemy of my enemy, was my friend, and that the enemy that bound those two together was going to disappear sometime soon, and they did in 1945. And I say that because the Russians, it's one of the reasons, motivating factors behind the atomic bomb. So the Russians were moving down the Korean Peninsula, and we didn't want them to get to mainland Japan. We wanted an ally in Asia. So it really began. I mean, I think the official is 45 because World War II was still being fought, but it was, I think a lot of people, foreign policy experts, etc., were aware that that was going to somehow evolve into a conflict. Whether or not it would be a hot conflict or a cold conflict was yet to be decided. But there was only one country in 1945 that had atomic weapons. That is until the Rosenbergs. I think it was the Rosenbergs, Ethel and her hubby, sold the secrets to Russians, and then voila, two superpowers that have atomic weapons that they would perfect over the years, to the extent that what we dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945 is child's play compared to what we had. The Russians detonated the largest atomic weapon or nuclear weapon ever, the Tsar Bomba. I can't remember the year, but it's like 100 times more powerful. And it was reduced. It was 50% destructive capacity, and the scientists didn't reveal that they had done that, but they themselves privately were worried that it would disrupt the atmospheric layers of Earth and cause a huge catastrophe. So they actually, the Tsar Bomba, which is the biggest bomb, was reduced in capacity. How did it shape? Well, I think the reverberations. Well, one would say that today, the Cold War, people chalk it up as 1991, following the fall of the Berlin Wall and eventually the Soviet Union. But there's others that would say that we're not done with the Cold War. You're still looking at it. In fact, I think the leader of Russia is currently taking steps to rebuild what was considered to be the Soviet Union, as Vladimir Putin. And so you could say, how does it impact the world today? It still reverberates throughout the world today. North Korea is there, and they have atomic weapons. The enemies that are our current enemies were aligned, so to speak. Many of them, Cuba, was a flashpoint in the Cold War. Although one could quibble over whether or not they're an enemy or a friend, but when the United States wasn't, we got our hands dirty in Latin America, and we've seen a lot of the Latin American countries and other fledgling democracies fall because we liked, in some cases, like Saddam Hussein, for example, the leader of Iraq, who, I might add, is going to be featured in the Call of Duty Black Ops 6. He's going to be the bad guy. But his whole namesake was supported by the United States. He was our ally for many, many years because he was against communism. He was our friend because he was a good dictator, regardless of what he did to his own people and some of the neighboring countries and people that lived within. We were okay with that, as well as other dictators, as long as they were loyal to us and not the Soviet Union or the bloc. The USSR, how long?
All right, thank you for your time.
You're welcome.